Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Bumper Radio. I am Dave Riccio, and barely returning this week, I had to drag him down in my wheelbarrow, is Matt Allen. Either way, we're here to help you with your car. That may be car questions, car problems, a car purchase, whatever you need on your car, we're here to help. Give us a call at 602-277-5827, 602-277-KTAR. Today on the Bumper to Bumper Roadmap, automotive fact or fiction, as always, taking your calls. October is Fall Car Care Month. And you ever get that guy from the auto shop? He comes out to you with that little Petri dish, and it's got all the different fluids spread out. And he says, oh, you need this one, and you need that one, and you need that one. Do I really need all those fluids? Have you ever asked yourself that? I mean, the guy's so convincing. You know,
he's a good salesman.
He's a good salesman. So we're going to talk about preventative maintenance and fluids since it's Car Care Month. And because Matt, about literally like 2 minutes ago, was laying on the floor, almost passed out, I thought I would bring in Jim Adkinson from the car repair company to help me in case Matt
We call Jim. Out. Jim, stat. Get to the studio.
I rolled down here code 3.
Do you have your 1 out of 12 ringtone playing, Jim?
I do. I have that back.
Jim's a Jim Rockford wannabe. Yeah, so if you hear the microphone go silent and a little in the background, I'm not feeling so well today, but now that the red light's on, I'm feeling pretty good. Let's see if I can't get chipper.
Well, have you seen that scene when I'm getting a car wash? I see that scene. The guy always comes out with the white Petri dish. You know, he's got all the little different spots, and he's looking at your transmission fluid and your engine oil and your coolant.
Well, you know what I like? Because once in a while I go to the car wash, too, and I don't get an oil change. I'm just getting a car wash. And the guy comes out, and the woman has agreed, that there was a conversation about getting an oil change. And then right away I see this. Do you want your transmission service? Do you want your power steering service? Just asking all these questions without any basis for making a recommendation, just hoping that someone is someone that likes to say yes and buy things. So have information. Then they bring out the Petri dish, and sometimes that's good to show you, that in what we're talking about, they'll take a sample of perfectly brand new clean antifreeze or oil, and then have a sample from your car. And then you look at it. And I think, I made the analogy, Dave, my house doesn't look as good as the day it was painted, but it doesn't need a paint job yet just because it isn't exactly like it was. So there's some merit with some of those Petri dishes, if you will, and fluid trays, I think they call them. But
and that's why it's important that you know exactly what you've had done on your car, so the guy doesn't come out and all of a sudden, no, I had that done at 37,000 miles. I know, yes, I have to do that. Then you're not getting bamboodled into anything.
Or you're at your repair shop your regular bumper-to-bumper shop that you go to, and you have a relationship there, and you don't have to get all these questions. Do you want this or do you need that? You have a relationship, and you're expecting it because the last time you were in for the oil change, you were prepped for it. Hey, this fluid's getting dirty. We're going to change it next time maybe.
Well, the key word here, or key words, is to have a game plan. You don't necessarily need to spontaneously buy something at the car wash lube station because the guy says you need it. There needs to be a game plan behind all these maintenances that are going on. So I came up with some general guidelines.
Oh, that was you, huh?
Oh, it was.
I was laying on the floor while you were doing it, but
that's just not true. So, guidelines so you know what is normal. And I talk to everybody about their cars, and I don't tell them exactly what I do, and there's some bad information out there. We all knew we needed oil change every 3 months and 3,000 miles. Now, some people are of the opposite extreme. We don't need an oil change till every 18,000 miles. I don't know if I quite sit well with an 18,000-mile oil change.
I don't buy into it.
I don't buy into it. A lot of marketing behind that. So these would be the guidelines that I will go with.
Now, I will say, though, before we get into the 3 and the 5,000-mile oil change, there are some of those, the Mercedes, the BMW, maybe the Rover. You can take those up, 7,500, 8,000. Those are more along the lines. But then again, the newer GM truck with the Dexos synthetic fluid, I bet that thing will go 10,000 miles before the light comes on to tell you. My kind of thought is no more than 7,500 on the extended drain intervals.
7,500 miles. So 3,000 would be pretty aggressive.
Well, not if you're getting a $100 synthetic oil change on your BMW, you're not going to do it every 3,000. But 3,000 on your Civic. Then again, the new Civics all want synthetic oil. But your conventional motor oil, non-synthetic,
On my sexy Honda Element, I've got the little thing.
Where is it?
It is sexy, okay? It's got the little percentage. It says you've got 20% oil life left. And it really is I got 10% oil life left at about 45 to 5,000 miles on that oil change. So as a rule of thumb, traditional oil, 3,000 miles is good. 3 to 5,000 miles is a good rule of thumb. Now, an expensive oil change with the synthetic is 7,500 miles. You might have to start to stretch it out. But by no means let it happen 12,000, 15,000.
Well, and check your owner's manual. You know, there's a lot of them that will say the new Dodge Charger, 3,000 miles, no matter what. 3,750. I saw a Kia the other day.
Yeah, so some of them are actually going the opposite direction because we got new things like these, direct injection, and there's a new cam lobe that's pumping that fuel at a high pressure. So transmission oil, that's a big one. Rule of thumb, we'll just go quickly here. Every 30 to 50,000 miles or every 2 to 3 years. So if you got it done last year and they're asking you again for it here this year, how many miles has it been? So as general guidelines, every 30 to 50,000 miles.
Except if you're towing, then you might want to tighten that up a little bit. Maybe at the beginning of the season or something.
We actually, after transmission's been rebuilt or remanufactured, we lower that recommendation because there's more total dissolved solids in the fluid. So there is a more aggressive recommendation on a rebuilt transmission versus a new factory transmission. So that came with the car. Power steering fluid. I've seen guys sell a customer power steering fluid like it's the most important thing that they could have for their car today. And I'm thinking of one of the chains in mind, but they're trained to get 3 no's before they let you out the door, before they say you can't buy it. And that's what we want you to be aware. Power steering fluid, flush every 60,000 miles.
60,000. And what we do at our shop, too, is if you have, you got 65,000 or 70,000, maybe the fluid hasn't been serviced, and we see some minor seepage from the power steering pump, maybe from the rack and pinion unit, we'll go ahead and service those, flush them. We've had a lot of success with the power steering fluid that we use has a vitalizer in it. It just helps soften the seal. It's kind of like that high mileage oil. There's just a little foo-foo juice in there.
Seal it up a little bit.
To make it seal better. So we've had a lot of success. You get two birds with one stone, so to speak. You do your maintenance, and then you're slowing down or preventing that leak from getting worse and deferring needing a rack replacement or something like that.
Well, the other one that goes unseen is the differential fluid. Differential fluid, people come in, your differential needs service. Differential, what the heck is that? Differentials, if you have a rear-wheel drive car or even a all-wheel drive car, there's going to be some differentials in that. They're not going to be as frequent, but differentials are about every 30 to 50,000 miles, again, every 4 to 5 years. So they're probably somewhere in the same realm as the transmission. And
transfer case would go along with the differentials, wouldn't you think?
Definitely, transfer case, 30 to 50, and that one always gets forgotten. Most people say, I never use my four-wheel drive. Why do I need to service that thing? And I say, all the power is always going through the transfer case. Whether you use the four-wheel drive or not, it is being used.
Well, even for the front differential in that case, for that matter, the bearings are still being lubricated with the oil. The oil is still being used. Maybe not as bad in the ring and pinion gear, but definitely in the bearings.
Gas prices are down. We may be looking at $3.30 a gallon. Wow, why does that sound good? But it's really just not that good.
Well, man, I still saw diesel at $4.25 the other day. It's like, holy mackerel! I filled up my tank on the excursion. It was $100.
That's just ridiculous. So, how about you, Jim?
I'm looking forward to the election to see if these fuel prices come down, if that has anything to do with it.
Jill was saying by the end of November, $3.30 a gallon.
That would be nice.
That would be nice.
One of the fluids we didn't forget about, Dave, but we just didn't get to. We went over engine oil, transmission fluid, differentials, and transfer cases, power steering. Oh, we didn't talk about. Yeah, we did.
Well, just be quiet. Jim and I are going to do the show.
Brake fluid.
I said we would get that when we come back. Brake fluid for sure. Brake fluid every 30 to 50,000 miles or 4 or 5 years. And really on that one, you can...
That's just not true, Jim. Dave.
He doesn't even know who's who.
I'm a little off.
I'm over here.
The German manufacturers have been saying brake fluid every 2 years.
Well, that's one, if you're in for a brake service, it may not be 30,000 miles. It's not necessarily as mileage driven. These are general guidelines. Exactly. So when the guy comes to you at the shop and he says, oh, you really have to have this like it's the most important thing right now to your car this day, you can say, that's just not true.
Or ask why and let him explain it to you.
There may very well be a reason. Now, I've seen transmission fluid turn black fairly quick because there's a problem or there's something going on. So if you just had it serviced and all of a sudden it is black, maybe there's a reason that happens. So,
And coolant.
engine
What are we doing on
coolant.
engine coolant? Antifreeze.
Now, General Motors was the first to come out with the long-term engine coolant that was supposed to last 10 years or 100,000 miles, the DX Cool coolant. And everyone knows if you let that stuff go 10 years or 100,000 miles, you're just going to be riddled with cooling system issues.
And gel.
There was no letting it go. It never made it.
It never made it,
You
did
know?
it right? Something else gave out before that happened.
Yeah, and one of the big problems with our cooling system is not having a good pressure cap on there. That was one of the big deals with DexCool is the system is not sealed if it's got a bad cap, and they even told people don't even check it. You can see the overflow bottle, the pressurized vessel there, container. If it's full, don't take the lid off. You're just inviting atmosphere, air in there, oxygen, and it's not good for the fluid.
Well, up first this segment, let's go with Hector in Santan Valley on a 2000 Honda CRV. Go ahead, Hector. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Yeah, how you doing?
Good.
Okay, actually, I had an air conditioning question. If that's okay. I have an issue when I put the car in park. The RPMs will jump slightly from down and up from anywhere from 800 to 500 and to 1,000. Just keep jumping up and down, and then the actual air conditioning system itself, it actually feels like it's just blowing air instead of any cool air. Like it stops working for maybe a minute or so. Other than that, it works when it's in drive and I'm driving the vehicle around. I just want to know if it's something I should take in to get fixed, or can I actually fix it myself?
Well, does this symptom only happen with the surging when your air conditioning's running?
Yes, only when the air conditioner is running.
So I would, and how is the AC performance when the vehicle is running and you're not in park and the idle is stable or cruising?
Perfectly fine.
I bet it's actually not perfectly fine.
Yeah, I would say
I-
critical charge system, maybe a little low on charge and cycling off. So that engine RPM change that you're experiencing could be the compressor cycling on and off, on and off.
Yeah, I mean, and what happens is when Jim says critical charge, the system is designed to hold whatever. Let's just say 2 pounds of pressure. And when we have 2 pounds of pressure, we're going to have certain high side pressure and certain low side pressure. Let's just say 50 and 200. When that system gets low, those pressures will drop, and there's protection built into the controls that will turn that air conditioner off when the system gets too low. It's also the same thing that cycles the air conditioner when the system is working just fine, and it gets to the temperature that it wants to achieve. It's going to cycle the air conditioner on and off. So I bet what's happening, and I think you would agree, Jim, it's low on charge, and so it's saying it's turning off, and then the RPMs rise for a second and then drop back down. And when it turns back on, the computer's sending a signal saying, hey, man, the AC's on. I need some more RPMs. So it raises the RPM. It gets in this game of going back and forth with itself, and there you have it. So it's probably an AC charge issue.
Well, thanks for the call, Hector. That's not bad for a sick guy.
Start getting in my
Getting
mojo going.
Mojo going.
Groove on.
Well, let's go to Jerry in Phoenix on a 1995 Honda Civic. Go ahead, Jerry. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Yes, I got my daughter got a 95 Honda Civic DX, and she brought it to me, and the brake lights were stuck on, and it told me to check the reservoir, make sure that was full, and I was told that it has a switch behind the brake pedal.
You talking about the brake lights on the back of the car or the brake light on the dashboard?
The brake light on the back of the lights, the lamps themselves is stuck on position.
Okay. I think we know what's going on with it.
Right. Excuse me. That could be an easy one. The easiest way to check is go ahead and take your toe and lift that brake pedal up on that plunger switch. Every time you apply the brake, there's a plunger switch. Sometimes that rubber button between the plunger switch and the brake pedal that goes up into the steering column area actually comes off, so the brake never knows when it's off.
Right. Yeah, and that's easy to do, too. And sometimes people have this intermittent problem with a dead battery or the light sticking on. The other way to check that is if the car has cruise control, which a DX isn't going to have cruise control, I don't think. Driving along, try and set the cruise. If it doesn't work, a lot of times you have a brake light switch issue. But that should be pretty easy, and I bet you wouldn't have any problem taking care of that yourself.
Well, thanks for the call, Jerry. We had a Facebook question from Gary on a 2004 Dodge Caravan. After the vehicle's been sitting off and he starts it up, it's got a long crank. So it may crank for 10 seconds, 15 seconds. Once the car's running, it runs fine. When he turns the car off and goes to turn it right back on, it starts up right away. But anytime the car has sat for a long period of time, this happens.
Or even a short period of time, what we call a hot soak. He said if you run it, maybe go into the store, do your grocery shopping after the car's been running, and come back out, it displays the same symptom as it had overnight, sitting all night.
So I'm going to suggest that we've got a weak fuel pump in this particular case. I didn't see anything else there that would point me in any other direction, but Matt, you said what's the thing he can do to test that?
Well, yeah, the thing that you can do to help yourself, Gary, hopefully you're listening, and to help save you some money and help the shop, and the way it's going to help you save money is if you're going to take it to a shop, having good information to take to them and to describe your symptoms and tell them what you've done and it's improved or what you've done and it hasn't had any effect. But what you want to do is cycle the key on and off 3 times before you start the car first thing. So you're going to go on with the key, wait 3 to 5 seconds, off. Repeat that 3 times. And what you're doing is you're cycling the fuel pump, because I think what's happening overnight is losing the prime, losing the pressure, and then so by cycling that, you're building that pressure up. What's happening when you're cranking the car and it's taking 15 seconds to start, it's just waiting for the pressure to catch up. The pump's running, it catches up, fires off. If it starts right away, you're going to help us narrow down to a fuel pump, fuel pressure regulator, or something like that.
And before the break, I mentioned that all the bumper-to-bumper shops, if you go to bumpertobumperradio.com, all the bumper-to-bumper shops are doing a maintenance inspection. We're talking about fluids. Do I need fluids? Don't I need fluids? Should I believe this guy? Shouldn't I believe this guy? How important is it to be keeping my fluids clean?
But not just fluids, Dave. We're going to do a car care inspection, lights, tires, fluids, peek in the wheels, take a look at the brakes, battery. Let's make sure at Thanksgiving we're not stuck in the woods on Grandma's house, on the way to Grandma's house. You know what I mean?
No, we don't want to have that.
Well, and there was Jill was talking about the news. They're predicting a lot more travel this year. Airfares are up, flights are limited. I think a lot of people will be driving, and we just don't want to see anybody stuck.
Well, if you happen to be at bumpertobumperradio.com, there is a Facebook link where we desperately need friends. So if you could go in there and like us on Facebook, we would sure appreciate it.
Am I part of that we? Because I'm doing okay.
You don't even have to be our friend. Just like us.
Yeah, just like us.
Or pretend.
I was young. I needed the money. So, anyway, up first this segment, we've got Marie in Peoria on a 2000 Toyota Camry. Go ahead, Marie. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Yeah, my car, every time I start it, a bunch of smoke comes out, and it really stinks bad. But after I drive it, then it's fine. Now, if I stop it and start it again, it won't do it. But if it's sit for a long time, it does it. Every time it's done it like for 3-4 years. Is there something I could put in to... It's not leaking oil.
Hey, Marie, is this just the first thing in the morning, the first time you start it, but as you drive it for the rest of the day, there's no problems as far as the smoking?
Well, I park it at a parking garage, and when I come back out from work and I start it, it does it again. So, I mean, after it's set for 8.5 hours.
I'm pretty confident. We had an email like it this week that we've got starting to have a valve seal or valve guide issue. You know, what's happening is the car sits over extended periods of time. The oil is running down the valve right into the combustion chamber. So when you start the car up, you are going to get some smoke coming out of it, and it's going to burn off relatively quickly and go out the tailpipe, and everything's fine as you go until it sits again where that can happen. So the question from the email, and yours is a good question, is do I need to address it? Well, it can be very expensive to do valve guides or valve seals. It's an expensive repair. How bad is it, and how much oil is it consuming? So that's what we want to know. So when you go in for an oil change, you want to note how full it was or how full it wasn't when you go in there. Did it burn up half a quart? And we're talking about 3,000 or 5,000 mile intervals. I would say for a 2000 Camry, 3,000 intervals is probably pretty good. We want to take a peek at that to make sure we're not losing enough oil to do damage to the engine.
Well, I doubt, Dave, that we're going to get much, you know, with a puff here and there. We're not going to get much to make the oil level real low. And I get this question a fair amount too. Like you said, we had an email about it during the week, and we briefly talked about this. And those can be expensive to replace. Sometimes you have to take the cylinder head off the car. You have to do basically a valve job. Or some cars you can, and the Camry's one of them, you can sneak in there, disassemble or partially take apart the head, get to the valve stem seals and replace the seals. And that's still several $100s probably. But what's important too is a lot of people say, oh, it's not that big deal. It's just a little puff of oil. Well, every time that little puff of oil burns, it's going out the exhaust, but on its way out, it's going through a very expensive catalytic converter. And the ash from the oil will kill your kitty.
Well, and that was the guy's question. Do I need to do something about it, and how much is it going to cost to do something about it? And if it's barely doing it, it's pretty minimal, pretty minor. There's really no oil loss over the course of a 3,000-mile interval, and you're saying we may not see that. If I don't have any drivability issues, is the engine running bad where it's causing a problem or fouling up a spark plug or anything like that? If it's not, you can buy a lot of oil, if it's consuming oil, for what it would cost to fix that. But the other point here is the catalytic converter may very well go bad because of this puff of smoke.
As a result. But one thing that you can try, maybe on your next oil change, go in and ask them if they have an engine cleaner or an engine flush. And I'm not talking about something where you've got to hook up an apparatus and flush the engine in this $89 or $100 deal. I'm talking about $15 or $25 for an additive that goes in the oil before we change the oil. Because you could have a ring hanging up, or it could be causing a mechanical issue from carbon, and we want to wash that stuff. And the engine flush can do that. And the other thing that you might try, I wouldn't try them both together because you don't know which one's going to work, but try the engine flush deal first. And then the next time, maybe try some of the Valvoline high mileage oil or something like that. That supposedly helps soften and vitalize seals and such.
Well, thanks so much for the call, Marie. If you'd like more information, you can follow us up with an email at bumpertobumperradio.com, the contact link. Send us an email. We'd be happy to get you more information as far as that goes. Well, next, let's go with Dennis in Gilbert on a 2003 Honda Civic. Seems like today is Honda Day. Go ahead, Dennis. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Well, I had a problem with my air conditioner recently, and it's kind of a two-part story. One, one afternoon, the air conditioner just quit blowing hot air. We stopped for dinner. An hour later, it started blowing cold air again. That was going fine, and then all of a sudden I'm going down the interstate, and the engine, I thought the engine was going to seize, actually. The vehicle shuddered for a little bit. There was kind of half a popping noise, and then it went on fine, but no air conditioning.
What's the status of the AC now?
Oh, it's not working.
Oh.
And there's a car, and again, this back to, you only have the problem with the way the car ran while you're having air conditioning problems. If you forget about the car even having AC and drive it around, you're good all day, all the time?
Yep.
Was there any squealing when the air conditioning started to quit working?
No, it happened a few weeks ago. I don't remember.
Don't remember if there's any squealing, because that's one thing I would be concerned for.
Sounds like the compressors maybe seizing, the belt,
idler, pulley, tensioners, anything. Have you opened up the hood to see if anything's come apart or frayed or?
Well, as far, you cannot underestimate my mechanical ability.
Mine either.
Well, if you're in Scottsdale, I'm quite sure I can help you out.
Well, he's in Gilbert, and actually
Gilbert?
Being in Gilbert, Frank Lloyd's Desert Car Care. He's
That's
actually
right,
got
Frank.
a couple locations, Desert Car Care. You can find them on the bumpertobumperradio.com website, and that'd be a great resource just to start. I'm not sure if they're open Saturdays. It's getting late in the day, though, but
I'm pretty sure he was dealing with an AC compressor that was starting to lock up and seize up, and he was saying it sounded like the engine was seizing up. Now, on those Civics, I've got a Civic at the shop that we had to put an AC system in, and we did some aftermarket parts, tried that to try and save a little money. And I tell you what, it was a no-no. I had to redo the whole job. So when it comes to Civics or CRVs in particular, I think of CRVs.
Well, Honda's had some problems with those, grenading.
When the compressor comes apart, you want to do it all.
Yeah.
Rather than just, patch and, shoestring and bubble gum it back together. Condenser, evaporative core, compressor, what else needs to happen?
Well, yeah, you just need, and Jim's our resident AC expert. It's in his blood.
When you, yeah, that's right. When you replace those parts, like Dave said, you want to go with OEM or OEM equivalent. You don't want to go for the cheapest, especially on a condenser, because poor cooling is going to be right around the corner.
Well, let's talk to Dallas in Phoenix on a 2002 Dodge Dakota. Go ahead, Dallas. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hey, great. Thanks for having me on the program.
You bet.
I was calling because I have a low engine oil light come on whenever I go to idle after running down the highway or something, and then that causes a check gauge's light to come on.
Okay.
It's specifically low oil light. Have you checked the oil level?
Yes, I have. I have checked it. It's not leaking any oil. It maintains the full status. I haven't had to add any since the last oil change. I'm coming up on another oil change here soon, so I'll be doing that. But it hasn't been leaking anything. It's never read low. And as soon as I start to accelerate again, or just basically take it out of idle, the little indicator pops back up into the normal range, and the check engine light goes off.
Are you getting any knocking from the engine when it's at idle?
No, nothing like that.
Now, but hold on though. You said oil level. Does it actually say the word oil level? Or are you looking at the gauge where it's getting down on the low side of the oil gauge?
It's the oil gauge.
Okay,
Sorry.
so it's probably pressure.
It just drops down to the L. Yeah.
Well, the system's doing what it's supposed to be doing as far as warning you. It recognizes that the pressure's low. It says, hey, the computer's interpreting that. We've got a problem. We've got to tell this guy, check the gauges, find out what's going on. Probably, if there's no knocking noises, no issues, otherwise no other symptom, the easy guess is an oil pressure switch. Most shops will want to pull the oil pressure switch out, put a mechanical gauge in, verify the car has good, proper oil pressure. If everything's good, document what it was, put a new oil pressure sending unit in, and that's what's telling the gauge and telling the computer, I'm okay down here. It's just out of whack, out of calibration.
Thanks so much for the call, Dallas.
It's time for Fact or Fiction.
Since we're talking fluids today, I thought we'd talk about the color of brake fluid. The color of my brake fluid is a great indicator of how well my brake fluid is doing.
Ding, ding.
Fact or fiction? He's the first one to do that.
Fiction.
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 All right, Matt, what about you?
Well, what color are you talking about? Red, blue? Talking like coolant?
Just color.
Okay.
Just color.
Well, I just want to be clear. There's no different color necessarily of brake fluid, but I think I know what you mean. And I am going to say big fat F, fiction.
Big fat F. Well, what color is brake fluid new out of the bottle? Maybe we should tell everybody that.
Kind of like a golden clear, maybe like a little lighter than an apple juice.
Champagne.
Goldschlager
Champagne,
looking.
yeah.
No, you don't
Not
want
quite
the
that.
Goldschlager looking. The Goldschlager coffee look is the nasty.
Is not good.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what is going to tell me there's something wrong with my brake fluid?
Well, there's a couple tests we can do that are very objective tests. Where we first, I mean, you used to look at the brake fluid and look at this reservoir, and it looks like somebody poured a cup of coffee in it. And your first instinct is this brake fluid's no good. And I would probably agree that if it really does look that bad, get it out of there. But
or you could just put we're going to go ahead and check for moisture content and
Yes.
copper content.
Moisture
and
and copper content.
That's what we're checking. There's electronic devices that does it, and then there's the little test strip, just like you check your pool water when you go down to the pool supply place. So it gives you a color code.
and you're looking for high copper, just means the fluid's worn out and it's starting to wear the internals of the brake components. Or moisture, which brake fluid is hydroscopic. It's naturally going to attract moisture. So we check the boiling point of the fluid, and that's an indicator of how much water's in it.
Well, as a rule of thumb, brake fluid should be changed, according to German cars, every 2 years. But as a good rule of thumb, brake fluid every 30 to 50,000 miles.
Or just tie it in with your brake job.
For sure. Well, we've got an ever-patient Dave. Looks like he lives in Pine, and he's got a 2005, looks like a Ford F-250 diesel. Go ahead, Dave. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Good morning. I've got two questions. Where is most diesels have a water filter with a separator and a valve you can open to drain the water out?
Mm-hmm.
Where would that be on that truck?
You're going to find it in your owner's manual for sure, but it's typically going to be on the bottom of the fuel filter housing.
Okay. All right. Then the second question. I bought this truck new in 2005 because I'm disabled and I'm getting up there in years, and I thought it would be dependable and all that. The EGR system, my grandson brings me his diesel magazines, and apparently that particular engine, the 6.0 diesel, the EGR fails in almost all of them. The cooler under the intake manifold. I don't think mine has failed yet. I've only got 15,000 miles on the truck, but I did not buy it from Sanderson Ford like I should have. And I took it to the dealer, and I said, what do I do if this thing goes? And he said, well, you're going to have to pay for it. He gave me a price that was very expensive. But shouldn't that be covered under the extended emissions warranty?
Well, maybe or maybe not, but you know what you bring up is a good point. Like several good points. One, on the diesels, you have an EGR cooler that can fail. You also get the EGR system gets plugged up with soot and carbon. But this goes back to, what we were talking about, Dave, the other day. What Jim, I think, coined the phrase Google Gnostics. Getting on the computer and finding out, and you become a hypochondriac of car repair. You think you have a problem. You read something. Now you're worried about it. I have a 2005 Excursion, same truck basically, 85,000 miles on it. I haven't had any issues with it. Now, I will tell you, that thing's going to last me another, I've got a big family, lots of kids. It's going to have to last me 15 more years unless they're going to come out with another one. When I hit 100,000, I'm doing it anyway.
Right.
I'm doing a cooler. I'm putting a new radiator in it. I'm doing all the stuff because I know that stuff's going to go out.
Well, he's got 18,000 miles, so that's so far off
Yeah.
in the distance that it shouldn't even be a concern.
But I think it might be one of the earlier engines. Some of these problems
Early
they get solved before. It is a problem, and then they fix them within a couple model years. So it may not even apply to you at all. And Dave has a great example of Todd from Rios.
Oh, yeah, Todd from Rios. He was sitting out here outside the studio, and he said, I told him I was in the transmission.
And Rios is the AC guys. They're a part of Rosie's show.
Right,
and
energy guys.
Yeah, air conditioning contractor.
And he says, I got this Nissan Maxima. It's a 2004, and I've been Googling it, and everyone says I need a transmission, and a transmission's going to be $5,000. What do you think? I said, it's...
Yeah, well, he's ready to sign up. He's ready to write the check. He just needs to know the best place to go.
And a transmission would fix it, I'm very sure, but he didn't need a whole transmission. He just needed a valve body. I told him right on the spot, it's going to be a valve body, and it's $1,800, and it fixed it. But the Google Gnostics will take you down the wrong path, and the problem is everybody inputs the problems with the vehicles. They don't input what's good about the vehicle.
Yeah.
My
F-250
F-250 is great. I've been driving it for 200,000 miles with no problems, but it's going to be the issues that come up. And it really was a good 200,000-mile transmission. And, yes, we would fix it by replacing the transmission, but it's 3 times the price of what it needs to be.
Buying a new house because your toilet's leaking. New house will fix it. Just go get a new toilet. or fix the valve or whatever.
Sounds like something you would do.
But, back on that F-250, though, only 15,000 miles. It's 5 or 7 years old. Part of the problem with the EGR cooler leaking is it's using the cooling system, the antifreeze. Get that coolant out of there. You don't have enough mileage to change the coolant, but you need to get it out so it doesn't start corroding and causing other problems.
Well, thanks so much for the call, Dave. That was a good question. Let's go with Sal in Cave Creek fairly quickly. You're listening to Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Yeah, I got a quick question, guys. Backup light on my 1997 Ford Ranger. Is it a switch or is it a fuse? They really won't tell me about it at Ford, so I figured let me call you guys.
The backup light is going to operate off of what we call the manual lever position switch, which is on the left side of the transmission.
Well, is this an automatic or manual?
Oh, yeah, good question.
Yeah.
Where is it located again?
Is this an automatic transmission or a manual transmission?
It's an automatic transmission.
Okay, it's going to be on the left side of the transmission. So it's called the manual lever position switch, and that's going to be the source of how the vehicle knows it's in reverse to turn the lights on.
And he also has to make sure that his Prindle, which is the park reverse neutral drive low, is accurate too, because if he's finding reverse, maybe he's not truly finding reverse, which is not
Right,
triggering
it's not
the light.
quite landing on the rooster comb. So what you want to do anytime to make sure you're all the way in a gear is back it up against the stop of the gear. They call it the neutral stop or the reverse stop.
Correct.
And it's a rooster comb. And inside that transmission, it looks just like that, a rooster comb. And there's a ball and spring that it rolls over.
Well, and let's just not forget the obvious. Let's just make sure we don't have 2 burned out light bulbs.
Correct. They have the same amount of time on them, so it can happen.
In theory, you'd think every light bulb, you think you're driving down the road and you lose one headlight, the other one ought to go out too, but stranger things have happened.
Right, and maybe just a few. So anyway, I am really glad that everybody shared their Saturday with us. Jim, I'm glad you could make it because I was really worried about Matt. I mean, I was truly concerned. When he called me, I thought, uh-oh.
I don't want to sit on the bench and all of a sudden they got a replacement player in here, I'm going to play injured.
He is Matt Allen. I am Dave Riccio. We'll be back next week.